Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and I want to start off this video before we get too into it here with a little bit of an admission. You see, there's something I like quite a bit, which is pie. Not the number, not the food. I mean, those are great as well too, and those are needed, but I'm talking about something like this. This here is a Raspberry Pi Pico, specifically a W variant, so I have the nice little Wi-Fi, I guess, or wireless enabled features right there. That's the more accurate way of saying it. However, I do like Pi quite a bit, as does the greater modding community because of the chip right here being the RP2040. This has become really for many people like modders' favorite little microcontroller and little playbook right here, because there's so many things that you're able to do with the RP2040, and we're only seeing more and more happen from it. Now, I wanted to take some time to make this video to cover specifically one project that is not necessarily new, but something that is still pretty cool nonetheless. This is from developer wiredopposite, and this is for the OGX-Mini, which, in case you do not know, allows you to end up taking a firmware, flashing it to one of these boards here, and from there you're able to take a Raspberry Pi Pico, or a Pico W, or a Pico 2, or even a Pico 2W, a RP2040. There's a few other development boards that work as well too, but the main point of this is you can flash a firmware to your board, and from there you then have a really awesome, really powerful, and incredibly affordable controller adapter. So you can take different controllers from different systems and use them across even more systems. Out of the box, this does have support for the original Xbox, PS3, Switch, XInput devices, DInput devices, as well as the PlayStation Classic. And there's a little more to that as well too. I'll get to that later in the video. But the point is here, you're able to do this quite affordably. This here, I will say, at the time I purchased this, the Pico W only cost me $5. And with this as well, you really don't even have to do any soldering, and you can get your wireless controllers working, which is pretty awesome to see. So what I'm saying is, if you want to do something such as use a DualShock 3 on your original Xbox, as long as you can adapt it, you can make it happen. If you want to use a DualSense controller on a Nintendo Switch, you're able to do that without any kind of modifications. You really just need to get this adapted and working to the system, and you're good at that point. Now, there is going to be more that I want to discuss about this, and even if you want to make it look a little nicer so you don't just have, you know, this development board sticking out of your system with a random cable. Since this is a pretty open community, there's even cases that you can print out yourself, or you can make yourself do whatever you want to, so you can have something like this, where as opposed to just having this board stick out here, you're able to take that and you can put it in a nicer looking case such as this right here. So it feels a little more professional. It even has like a nice button for your button that you can press pretty easily, and it just works out a little nicer that way. Now, I will say, as someone who doesn't have my own printer here, but I still want a really high quality print, that was all thanks to this video's sponsor, PCBWay, which let's go ahead and get into that. Now, if you haven't used PCBWay's services before, PCBWay really aims to be your one-stop shop for anything prototyping, whether you're a novice or whether you're a really advanced prototyper. Not only you can create your own printed circuit boards, you can even have them assemble, but they also have 3D printing options and more available, which is what I end up using for this case right here. Now, I will tell you all, this was not my favorite case. I did have another intention for this, which I'll get to later on in the video. However, I'll show you all how you can make use of their services here in this example. If you're wanting a nice print, especially in something such as resin, which is what I did right here, this is really what you can do. First of all, this is the case that I ended up finding. Now, I know there's many different cases out for the Raspberry Pi Pico, and there's many different options available, and of course you can even create your own, but I ended up going with this one here because it suited my exact want that I was looking for at the time. You see it has this hole in the bottom right here, and this is going to be for a USB port, which I didn't end up using, and I'll get to that later on. However, let's say you find a case or print that you really like. What you can do is go ahead and download the working files for them. Once you have them downloaded, you're probably going to have them in STL format, for example. Go over to the PCBWay site and check out their 3D printing section. Once you're on there, take each STL file and upload it. I'm going to do these here one at a time. Once you have this uploaded, you're going to have to go through all your specifications here. Now, as I typically do, I like to go in black for this because, well, as Master Shake said,
and the ink being black,
everything must be black, like the storm of justice.
well, maybe you better talk to them then.
But even if we take Aqua Teen Hunger Force out of this here, I was thinking that black would be a pretty awesome color for the case itself. Now, they have many different flavors and variations combinations of materials you can use, but this is what I end up going with. I end up wanting a rosin case right here because I've done rosin printing through them before, I've liked it, and that's just what I wanted for this project here. So what you can do is get all your settings dialed in, make sure they do match if there's any specifications that might be there from the original creator, make sure you respect those. Then once you have it all set up, from there you just need to have it go through their verification process. Once it's been verified and paid for, it's processed, created, shipped out, and once it's been created and shipped out, boom, you have your cases available to you right here. Now, even looking at the case, I did expect something good from PCBWay, but this ended up coming out much better than I expected. It looks absolutely beautiful, it is smooth, there's no imperfections really that I'm seeing on this, and then the only button on here, which is for the bootloader button itself, it's clicky, it works really well, there's really no misses, there's really no issues on that. Plus, the nice thing about this case is that you don't need anything extra on here. You just take your board, you put it in, you close it up, and you're done. Now, although this time around I just got some 3D printing done, I've had PCBWay help me out with printed circuit boards in the past, including this one right here in my most recent video prior to this one, which was this nice little original Xbox skeleton key PCB. I end up assembling this myself here, but it ended up coming out wonderfully. So whether it be for 3D printing, for PCB prototyping, or even both, PCBWay has your needs covered. If you're interested in checking out some of their services, there's going to be a link down below in the description, in which if you're a new user, you can even get $5 towards your first order if you click on that link. Oh yeah, and if you're currently watching this video in 2025, from now until the end of the year, they are doing some big Christmas specials right now. You all can look on screen and see some of the sales they're doing, plenty of coupons as well too. So if you're looking to have anything printed, made, whatever you want to prototype here, go ahead, stack up, save up, and have some fun this holiday season. Either way, PCBWay was a huge help getting some nice cases printed out for this project here, and of course this video, so I do want to thank them for sponsoring this video. Now, let's go ahead and continue on here. Now, talking about the project here, like I said earlier, this does cover, in terms of consoles, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 3, the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation Classic, DInput enabled devices, as well as XInput enabled devices. And in the XInput section, that's essentially there to support, of course, not just XInput devices, but the Xbox 360. There's a little bit of something to keep in mind with the 360 though. You see, you do have to have a modified 360 in some way. It needs to have bad update, bad avatar, or whatever you want to call it, but I'm just going to call it bad update from here on out. You need to have bad update at minimum on your system, or you need to have a hard modded system such as a JTAG or an RGH. And that is because you need USB-D sec patch on there. If you don't know what USB-D sec patch is, that is a patch which was created by Invoxy Play Games, which allows you to really take any type of XInput device, hook it up to an Xbox 360, and from there you're able to use a myriad of different devices. I've been using this for a bit on my systems. It works pretty well. I've covered this in a few videos as well too, so I'm not going to be covering the specifics with USB-D sec patch, but I will say here, real quick, if you have a hard modded system, you could either use a plugin and pop it into Dash Launch and run it that way, or you can just patch your NAND directly using JRunner with extras. I've got a video covering that. But let's say you don't want to do any soldering, or you don't want to hard mod your system or what have you, there is bad update available, which just requires a USB drive. And as long as you have that, you're probably going to be using a payload such as Free My Xenon or even Xenon Unshackle. And the good news about those is that they actually have USB-D sec patch capabilities already built in. So therefore, if you have bad update running on your system, you already have the ability to do this. But if you have a completely stock, unmodified Xbox 360, unfortunately, you cannot use this at this time. This also supports many different adapters out there. Really, just off of the GitHub page, it does state that it supports the Adafruit Feather USB host board, the Raspberry Pi Pico, the Pi Pico 2, the Pi Pico W, the Pi Pico 2W, the Waveshare RP2040, the Pico ESP32 Hybrid, and a 4-channel RP2040 setup. So there's many different options available. Plus, since this is a free and open source tool and the firmware is all out there, you can even use this to create your own boards. Really, as long as you create a board, for example, that has a RP2040 chip on it and everything's been created properly, you can even create your own custom little adapters. A friend of the show, Modsville USA, for example, he's actually made one for the original Xbox that looks a little something something like this here. So there's things like that that you're also able to do. And even taking all the different board options and all the different consoles into account, there's even further things that you can do. I was surprised to see this, for example. If you're using this on the original Xbox, you can use this as a bog standard original Xbox controller, meaning I'll show you all right here. Let's say you take one of these, and from here I have my micro USB cable to USB-A. So you plug that in, and from there, thanks to PCBWay for this one as well too, since they were able to help fabricate these little skeleton key USB adapter setups, and then of course I soldered them up. I have a video covering this as well too, but you can take this, you can go ahead, plug it in, and from here, you can take this whole contraption and you can plug it into any of the free ports on your original Xbox. Then, as long as you have a controller synced up, boom, you have wireless controller capabilities. So I was able to play my original Xbox games using this DualShock 4 right here. And the best part is, you don't even need a modded Xbox for that either. You should, I would recommend still modding your original Xbox. With how old those systems are and some of the inherent issues on them, I definitely recommend modifying them. But what I'm saying is still, you don't need to modify your original Xbox to get this up and running here. Out of all the officially supported systems on this project, the only one you really need to modify is the Xbox 360. And even to get that up and running, like I said, you can just use bad updates. So you don't have to send off your system and get modified. You don't have to open it up yourself. As long as you have access to a way of running homebrew on that system, you're good. So there's really one system on this list that you need to actually modify. Going back to the original Xbox, however, it's not just that you can use this for your controller replacement, but you can even use it as the Steel Battalion controller. So you know that whole big thing? Yeah, you could use it for the original Xbox here, and you can even emulate the original Xbox DVD remote. The reason why I'm quiet is because I don't really know who's hankering to emulate the original Xbox DVD remote in terms of using it as a controller of sorts. But it's possible to do this here. Setup for this here is incredibly easy, by the way, and I'll go ahead and show you all how to set it up real quick. First, you need to go to the GitHub page linked down below in the description of this video, and then go to the latest releases section. Once you're in the releases page, look for the latest release, and there's going to be several different downloads right there. You're going to need to read the file names, and you're going to need to determine which firmware is going to be for your board. Now, like I said, I'm going to be using a Raspberry Pi Pico W, and if you just have a standard Pi Pico or even a Pi Pico 2 or a Pi Pico 2W, they all have different firmware, so be sure you're downloading the correct one for your board. Once you find your firmware, download it and save it somewhere you can easily find it. Then from there, you need to program your board. Since I'm going to be using a Pi Pico W, this is really all you need to do. You take your Pi Pico W, there's only one button on there, which is the boot cell button. You hold that button down, and while you're holding it down, plug in a USB cable from your board to your computer. Once it's connected, it's going to look like a USB drive on your computer. All you need to do is take the UF2 file that you've downloaded, copy and paste it into that USB drive. It's going to take a little bit to copy over, but once it's completed, it's going to automatically disconnect and then reconnect. And once it's reconnected, boom, that's it. You've converted this into a really awesome, really affordable controller adapter. Now you need to actually get this set up. To get this set up, you need to pair a controller with it. And in this example, I'm going to be using a DualShock 4. Now what you need to do is take your controller and put it into sync mode. You're going to notice that your adapter is looking for something because the LED on there should just be blinking. While it's blinking, take your controller and get it synced up. Now once your controller is blinking like this, you can let go of any buttons and just give it a few moments to connect to your board. Once this is synced up, congratulations, that's a step out of the way. Now we need to do one more change here because you now need to adapt this to work with your specific console. The list of commands to shift the mode is going to be on the README of the OGX-Mini project. So I would recommend maybe having this written down somewhere, maybe just printing this out real quick, having it somewhere easy just so you can easily access it if you're going to be regularly using this here. You'll need to hold down your button combination for 3 seconds, but even if you're not counting, you'll know it works because after a few seconds, once that new setting is registered, your controller will automatically disconnect from the board itself. Once your controller is synced up yet again, congratulations, your controller and your OGX-Mini are now ready to use on that system. And here's a bonus as well. If you want to keep changing up the platforms and modes on here and you want to have it connected to your computer, you can actually see what it looks like when it reports as that. For example, right here, it's actually reporting as a DualShock 3 controller. From there, the only other thing you need to do is get it connected to your system in some way. If you're using the PS3, for example, it's really easy. It has USB ports on the side. So you just take this, you hook it up through USB-A, and that's all you need to do. Same thing on the Switch. If you have it docked, you just plug it into the dock and you're good at that point. If you're wanting to use it portably, thankfully, however, even though the GitHub does say it's just for docked, you can even use it portably. You just need to take one of these and you need to, again, adapt it to USB-C, whether you want to use a USB-C cable or you want to use a USB-A to USB-C adapter. You plug it in like this. Let me actually just show you this in action. So like I said, we have our board, we have micro USB to USB-A, USB-A to USB-C. Let me go ahead and grab my console here. Y'all might be noticing something already, but this will be a fun one. All right, so we have it plugged in just like that. You all might not be able to see the LED as well, but I promise you it is blinking in there. So we can take our adapter. I already have this synced up here, so I don't have to worry about syncing it again. There we go. We have it plugged up. We should be okay in this regard. And here we go. It took a few seconds, but you all can see. Check that out. Check that out. And if you all are wanting like a little bit of, I don't even know what I'm doing on this screen. I'm going to be honest with you all because I'm like looking at like the preview window of this, but you all can see like I'm moving this around and it's working. And there's a little bonus as well too here. If you're looking at this, some people might have caught up on this, but if you haven't already, this isn't even the original Switch. No. This is the Switch 2. This is, let me just pull this out of the grip here. This is the Switch 2 right here. And this is able to work on the Switch 2 without any updates because, like I said, this here is just emulating the Switch Pro controller, which the Switch Pro controller is backwards compatible on the Switch 2. You can even see it in the corner right there. It's showing up as a Pro controller. So, yeah, that was a nice little bonus. I did want to show you all that. I literally just tested this like a few hours ago because I was thinking, maybe this should work. Logically, this should work on the Switch 2. And it does. So you can see right here, the Switch 2, you can't modify it yet. There's no mods you can do on here yet. And this is working just fine on the Switch 2. At the time I paid for this is the $5 board. I also want to include in here that even though I'm not the type of person who really uses this at a power user level, and I talk about that as in like someone who really changes around mappings or changes around dead zones or what have you, you can do that as well too, pretty easily. What you'll need to do is get your adapter into the web app mode, so that involves, yet again, syncing up your controller and then holding down start, left bumper, and right bumper on your controller. Once your adapter ends up resetting, it should be in web app mode, and there is a web app which wiredopposite has up and running. You can find it on the GitHub page. You just need to go to that site, physically connect your adapter to your computer just using USB, and once it's detected on that website, you're able to change all the different settings on there. Like I said, mainly the mappings and the dead zones. So even if you're one of those power users who really wants that full control, you got it at your fingertips. Now, it seems like everything has been on the up and up with this, right? Like, I've been able to use it on the Switch. I've been able to use it on the PS3. One nice thing about the PS3 as well, which I actually covered in a brief video before this one ended up releasing, but some people might have perked up hearing about support with this on the PS3. You see, the PS3 has a little bit of an issue in which it is really picky with its controllers. Now, yes, you can hook up many other controllers through USB or even through Bluetooth. For example, you can use a DualShock 4 on the PS3. You can use a DualSense, which is the PS5 controller, over on the PS3. But when they're connected, they're just connected as generic controllers. They're not connected as a DualShock 3. The DualShock 3 is going to have some extra abilities, which a generic controller is not going to have. Yes, even if it's one of Sony's controllers right here. It supports those controllers, but it's not going to be the same thing. The reason why this is such an issue is not just because of things such as 6-axis not working on there, but it's mainly if you're needing to get your PS3 into the safe mode feature on there. If you get your PS3 into safe mode, you cannot use a generic controller. It must be a DualShock 3. Additionally, it also has to be a legitimate DualShock 3. If you have a clone DualShock 3, typically that's not going to work. If you have a bootleg one, typically that's not going to work. If you have a third-party controller, it's probably not going to work. And there's been other people who have said, just buy this adapter and it works just fine. But the beauty of this is, why do you need to go out and buy maybe a $30, $40, $50, even $60 adapter when you can get one of these for a few dollars and flash it with a free firmware and boom, you've got the same coverage here. To even show you all, I actually did that in the previous video. I ended up taking one of these, I set it into PS3 mode, then I was able to take my DualShock 4 synced up with this, connected to my PS3, and since it recognizes as a legitimate DualShock 3, I was then able to use safe mode, which is a godsend for many people out there who need to access safe mode on their PS3, especially because, I mean, considering here, the PS3 is an older system, you can't find those legitimate controllers as easily. The illegitimate controllers are not nearly as good as the original ones there. On top of that, even the original PS3 controllers coming out, a lot of them need their batteries replaced, and even the ones that don't need their batteries replaced have other issues as well too, which some people just might not want to maintain them. So if this allows you to reclaim and reuse features that had some restrictions on them, this thing is awesome. Now, I've been really positive discussing this here, but there are some downsides here. First of all, some people might be wondering about the latency on here, and I will say this, I'm not an expert when it comes to this here. I'm not one of those people who's really competitive. I'm not counting frames. I'm not going to really say, oh, there's this many milliseconds of lag or what have you on here. But I will be honest in saying that there is a noticeable amount of input delay when using this. So if you're playing something such as a fighting game that really relies on extremely precise timings, you might have to look elsewhere, unfortunately. If you're just going to be playing something where it doesn't really matter, you can like be a little bit off with your timing and such, this will work just fine, but it is noticeable. Can I give you numbers? Not so much, but I even just testing it briefly on the Switch 2, for example, just walking around, just using it and such, you can feel a difference compared to actually using these Switch 2 controllers versus using one of these adapters right here. Now, not just on there, I've also been playing on the Xbox 360, and that's a system I'm much more familiar with, and there is a little bit of delay felt on there as well too. Is it enough to really stop me from playing? No. I'm going to be honest, no. But is it enough that it would impede in performance for other people, especially people who really do need that precise timing? Absolutely, it can do that. Now, I'm sure this can get improved with future updates and such. I'm not sure how much more development is currently ongoing on this. It's been a bit since we've really gotten an actual update here, but the nice thing is, with free and open source projects like this, is that even if wiredopposite does not continue work on this, or there's certain features that they're not putting in, since it's free and open source, this project can always get cloned and it can be continued or extra features can be added on. That's kind of how it works, and that's just kind of like the beautiful nature of this here. So there's still a lot that you can do even within the confines of this project. Additionally, I did want to revisit this here. You see, this is the case I have, and I really like this case that I got, right? But you're seeing this big giant hole at the bottom right here, and you might be wondering, like, why did I end up springing for this case here if I'm going wireless? Well, let me tell you all what happened, right? Originally, I wanted to do this with a Raspberry Pi Pico, and for Raspberry Pi Pico, you have to go wired on there, and it is going to require some level of soldering. Now, I'm capable of doing that, but what ended up happening was then I kind of had the little bit of big brain, I guess, epiphany moment when I was like, wait a minute, if this supports the Pico W, and the Pico W has wireless controller capabilities on it, then can't I just use wireless controllers on here? And the answer was yes. So then I ended up changing the board to the Pico W for this project in this video here. However, I still went out and I got some female USB cables. One of them is actually, you can see this one is trimmed. I actually have a few of them. It's pretty much like this. This one I trimmed and stripped down quite a bit. Here's another one, which this is the original length here, and I was just getting this soldered in. Way too long for what I was needing, but the idea was originally going to be, let me see if I can kind of, put this all together here. This does not need to look pretty at all, but originally I want to make several of these adapters, and I wanted them to look a little something like this. So I would have, the actual USB cable up at the top. I'd have the case for the adapter itself, and then at the bottom I would have a female USB jack. So therefore, if I wanted to use wireless, I was able to do that. If I wanted to use a wired controller, I could do that as well too. I don't know what it is. I use multiple different Pico W boards. I use multiple cables right here. Here's another one. Here is one that is still soldered in. So I use different boards. I use different cables. I tried resoldering multiple times. I double checked the diagram on this as well too. Unless someone can point out otherwise, I'm going to say this was me, because this was the diagram that I ended up using, right? And that's exactly what I did. And to show you all, even though this did not work for me, like I tried this, the most most I was able to get out of a controller when I physically hooked one up like through USB to this, I was able to take my DualShock 4 and the orange light lit up on here signifying that it was hooked up to a power source and it was able to get power to it, but I could not get wired connectivity to it. Regardless, I'm going to say your mileage may vary. Maybe I'm doing something wrong on this here, but if you have a Raspberry Pi Pico, at least with what they're saying here, this is the diagram if you want to get it wired up on there. It's pretty simple on this. You can really just follow that. I still followed it with a Pico W because they should be the same board. It's just this one has the wireless capabilities on here. It's not as different as like a Pico 2, for example, or a Pico 2W, but really this is all you need to do. Take a female USB cable. You can either purchase one or you can cut one up and you can splice it yourself. There's going to be 4 wires in there. It's going to be red, green, white, sometimes gray, and black. And really you just got to match them up to this diagram. Like I said though, your mileage may vary on that. I've seen it work fine for people who use the Pico. I have noticed a different diagram where if you're using a Pico 2, you're going to need some resistors, but this is neither one of those. This here is the Pico W. I tried this multiple times, multiple cables, multiple boards, checked my soldering. Soldering was fine. Could not get USB controllers to work on this. That's where I'm at with this here. Some people might be asking, could you have tried it on an original Pico? Absolutely. But see, here's the thing. I still wanted to make this like for myself and like for my own needs on here. And in this, I really kind of balanced it out. And I was like, I still want to make this really like for myself and for my own needs on here and then kind of share that with you all. So if you're someone who you really want to use like wired controllers with your systems, that's fine. For me, it was wireless. When that opened up, that became more the priority. And I was like, if I can hook up a wired controller to it, that's a nice bonus. But if I can't do it, that's fine. I'm not going to complain all too much. Aside from that, some of the other negatives might just be limitations here. Like, for example, if you're going to be using this on a PS3, I did mention 6-axis earlier. Even though this does mirror a legitimate OEM PS3 controller, you do have rumble feedback, for example, but you're not going to have the ability to use gyros on there, which is 6-axis. So if you're playing any games which require 6-axis, don't expect that to work with like an Xbox Series controller or like even a DualSense, for example. You're just not going to be able to get it here for the PlayStation 3. If people are wondering about that Steel Battalion controller as well too, that's really just going to be limited to the Xbox 360 controllers because the Xbox 360 controllers have a chat pad. And if you use one of those chat pads with the controller and used on here, that's how you're able to play Steel Battalion. Oh, and for like the 8 people who'd be interested in like the original Xbox DVD remote emulation, you do have to provide your own firmware dump of the actual DVD drive dongle itself. I'm sure that's for copyright reasons on there, but just saying, if you're going to use it for that, you need to have that firmware available. Generally, and this is going to be kind of one last limitation going into a wish list here in a way, which I really only have one thing, but in terms of actual limitations, for the most part, it's really going to be one adapter, one controller. Like, you have your controller, you sync it up there, and it's not like you can sync up additional controllers, except for, well, actually the Xbox 360 wireless adapter. Now, I'm not talking about just like wirelessly hooking up a controller here, because with the 360 wireless adapter, it does not use Bluetooth. You need to get something like this. So that actually kind of rules my specific solution out, because I need a way to hook this up to this here, like having that USB option is what I'm saying. But what you do is you can take one of these, and if you hook it up to your OGX-Mini, you can actually sync up 4 Xbox 360 controllers to your 360 wireless adapter, and then have that hooked up to your OGX-Mini, and then have that plugged into a system, so therefore you're able to have 4 Xbox 360 controllers on one adapter on one system. That's pretty nifty there. But that's really the only like multi-controller system setup that I've seen for this. Outside of that, there is the exact opposite limitation when it actually comes to the Xbox 360. Like I said, the 360 does require you to modify the system in order to use this here. And once you do that, one of the limitations of USB sec patch is that you can really only have one USB sec patch enabled controller plugged into your system. So if you're thinking you could take like 4 of these and plug them into your 360 and have like 4 different wireless controllers from different systems there, no. You can still do that, but you can only have one. You can only have one adapter, and since you can only have one adapter, you can only have one controller on that system. Now, this does lead into something that I would like to see here in a future update. and I'm going to be mentioning Sandtroller. And I know there's people from like the rhythm game scene who do follow the channel here, and their ears might have perked up hearing that. But I bring up Sandtroller not because I'm a user of it. I really don't have any like the rhythm game controllers, and I don't aspire to get them again. I had them at one point, I got rid of them. I'm not trying to buy them back is what I'm saying. Point being, though, is that the Sandtroller allows you to hook up different rhythm controllers, like mainly guitars, let's just say, but allows you to hook up guitars from different systems into other different systems. Kind of like how the OGX-Mini is for just like general controllers like this. Sandtroller is going to be for rhythm games. Mostly it's going to be used for guitars. I bring up Sandtroller because it had a similar limitation with the Xbox 360, and it was actually eliminated because as of an update, I believe, that came out this year, Sandtroller actually now supports Xbox 360 completely out of the box. You don't need to dump your key vault, you don't need to dump any other files, you don't have to even have a modified Xbox 360. As long as you have the latest firmware of Sandtroller available, flash to your device, and then you can hook that up to your Xbox 360, you have a controller adapter that's working right out of the box. You don't need bad update, you don't need to RGH your system, you don't need to patch your NAND, you don't need a plugin, you don't need any of that. So you can now use Sandtroller on a completely stock Xbox 360. And if Sandtroller can do it, I believe the OGX-Mini can do it as well too. So that'd actually be something I'd love to see on this wish list here. I'm not sure how feasible it would be to get a bunch more systems detected on there. I'm happy with the systems that it does support right now. And even like I said earlier, inherently it does also support the Switch 2 because it's spoofing the Switch Pro controller, which works on the Switch too. But if we can get completely stock Xbox 360 usage working on here, that would be awesome. That would just be like a nice little bonus here. Either way, I talked about this project for a while here because there's a lot of really awesome stuff to share about this here. I've been using it for several months across different systems. I've had really good luck with it so far, and this is just to kind of share with you all, of course, as well too. And I think this is great. If you want to make your own solution, your own board, you can do that. If you want to use wired controllers, hopefully you have better luck than me. You will need a soldering iron, but hopefully you'll have better luck there. Otherwise, even if you just want to go in a wireless solution, like I said, I was buying these Pico Ws for $5 a piece. And typically, I believe the manufacturer's suggested retail price is $6 for them. So point is, for about $5 or $6, you can go out, you can get one of these Pico W boards, flash it with the free firmware, and boom, you have a $5 or $6 adapter right here. Yeah, there are the cables there, but this is going to be excluding that. If you have the cables on hand, you should be able to get this all sorted, and this has worked wonderfully. So would I recommend this project? Absolutely. If this is something that you're looking for, if this is something that you're interested in, definitely give this a spin right here. Like I said, the last bit on the soldering thing, if you're really wanting to use those wired controllers, probably just go with a Pico, just like a standard Pico on there. Not only it's going to be your cheapest option, but once you get it soldered in, you can just hook up your controller and you should be okay at that point. However, if you're primarily going after a wireless solution, bringing wireless controllers to older systems, or even newer systems that already use wireless controllers, and you just want to still continue on with that, like I said, you can't really go wrong with just getting a Pico W or even a Pico W2. You can get either one of those and it will work fine. And while you're at it, you might as well print out yourself a nice little case as well too. Again, this case has been like, this has been a wonderful case. This thing, oh, Lily, she ended up moving a little bit when I did that. But no, this case has been great. It's really strong. It's sturdy. It's fantastic. Resin printing is awesome. I do love resin prints. So I want to give PCBWay a big thank you and shout out to that yet again. Either way, that is about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated. And if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.